Hello, and welcome to Season 5 of the Your Neurodiverse Relationship podcast. I'm Jodi Carlton, your host, and I'm a neurodiverse relationship expert. But like so many of you, I've been on my own journey of discovering and understanding neurodiversity, both in my personal life with my family members and even myself, and professionally as a therapist and now relationship coach to people around the world. I'm often asked, can neurodiverse partner relationships actually work? And the answer is absolutely they can. Just like any relationship, there are core variables that influence whether or not you'll thrive as a couple. Neurodiverse relationships are no different, but they have the added layer of being neurodiverse, where one or both partners is neurodivergent. So this season, I've got a lineup of couples and partners who are in neurodiverse relationships that are working. They get real personal with me about the challenges they have faced and how they've overcome those challenges in their relationships. Let's get started. Hi, Laura. Thanks so much for being here again. I want to just say to the listeners that I just told you off before we started recording that the previous episode that you were on, podcast episode, has been extremely popular and is one of the most downloaded episodes I've had. So if you haven't seen that one and you want to go hear more from Laura, go back and look at the podcast. I believe it was something called A Therapist Discovers Neurodiversity in Her Own Relationship, I think was the name of it. So Laura, for those of everyone here who's listening or watching who doesn't know you, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself so that just fill people in?
Sure. I'm Laura Schreiner. I am in a neurodiverse relationship with my spouse, and we will be at 20 years actually Wednesday. And let's see, by day, I'm a mom of 2 neurodiverse children, and I am a daughter and a family member, I'm all the rest of the roles. And I'm a neurodiverse therapist for a living. And I didn't get into it because I wanted to. It sort of found me. And so it adds a little extra different energy to that. Whereas if I can help somebody through my relationship, ups and downs with my spouse, I can relate. That's why I'm here today too. So
yeah, I think most of us who are in this space, it found us.
found us.
It absolutely found us. I can relate to that. And some of us are still in our marriages. Some of us are not. And the point of this series that I'm doing here, Can Neurodiverse Relationships Work, is about that. It's about what are the ingredients that make it work, and what are some of the deal breakers that make relationships fail. And so you are here and your husband's not. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
So I will make sure to include his input today, but to preserve his anonymity. And he's kind of a private person, I would say, and a little bit of fear of coming in person and doing anything in a public limelight. It's a little bit for me too, I have to admit, but I'm happy to do it if it helps anybody. So he is here on paper. There have been many discussions prior to today, and even up to last night when I'm brushing my teeth at 10:30, asking him questions. So I very much want to make sure that everybody knows that it's not a one-sided, deal today, that I have definitely his points, and that I want to make sure I'm representing for both of us. When we're talking about neurodiverse relationships working, I've had a lot of change in how I even define our relationship as a whole in comparison to, what my ideals of our relationship was when we first got married 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I have at least 5 points from him I will get to, I promise.
Okay. Well, and it is intimidating to be in this public space. I've been doing it for a while, so I've gotten used to it. But I know what that felt like when I first got into getting on camera and talking about it. It's intimidating. And he's not alone. A lot of my autistic, but also not just the autistic folks, but a lot of my autistic folks, one of the first questions they ask is like, what's she going to ask me? It's just that being put on the spot to have a conversation can be really intimidating. And there's the anonymity piece of it too. And I know that when we talked before, he had said, yeah, it's okay for you to talk about us. I just don't want to be there myself. And so I'm glad that he's loaning you to us about as far as the relationship goes. And we'll work hard to make sure that you're going back and forth and sharing his thoughts, that he wants you to share his thoughts through you. So
he also gave me permission to use our stories, at work. And I
Okay. Oh,
find that
yeah.
very, very giving of him. I don't use his name or any, super
Mhm.
specifics, but oftentimes it's a lot easier for people to relate to the thought process. And I actually pick his
Mhm.
brain a lot. Really, really helpful. It's made me come a long way in how I see.
Oh, I think so, and I don't have the option of picking my ex-husband's brain about it, but I would say that in all of my neurodiverse relationships with other, because I have a lot of family and a lot of friends who are autistic or ADHD, and I spend a lot of time talking to them too and picking their brains, and just the differences between who we all apply even in our domestic relationships, our marriages. So you'll have to thank him for me and for all the listeners for providing his input through you. So why don't we just kind of dive right in? I want to talk about some of the challenges of neurodiverse relationships and then move into, or as we go, what kind of solutions that you've discovered, or what way strategies that you've used to address some of those challenges. So you can start wherever you want to start.
So let's start with communication because it's one of the top big three
Mhm.
that I feel like is up there. I have a theorem that I work with, which says improving communication with each other is not linear, not a
Mm.
linear progression, and it often does not appear equal. One person always feels like they're doing the other too much work or more
Yeah,
work of it
yeah.
all. And so with this nonlinear progression, it's a little more, good days, better days, not good days, to be
Mhm,
quite
mhm.
honest. And so with with that, I actually asked him last night. This was brushing the teeth at 10:30 at night with my big questions to him all the time. And he says, I asked him, I said, where do you think we are in our communication? And I have to pause and preface with we had been together 20 years, right? Actually, a little more than that. We found out about the neurodiverse piece like 7 years ago.
Mhm.
And so I'm going to put out there that marker was a hot spot for change after that. Everything has
Mhm.
gotten
Okay.
sort of progressively better after that. The knowing and having the data and reframing everything was huge.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's stages still ongoing with that too. My husband is not physically abusive. My husband is not emotionally abusive. And my husband is not a narcissist. And
Mm.
there's a lot of things I have to add in there because our relationship is unique, as all neurodiverse relationships are. But I have to add that in there because it's going to be different for everybody.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So that said, the improving communication with each other is not linear. Here's where he comes in. And I wrote this. This is his quotation. He says, I know I have a thought, but I can't crystallize it. It's like looking at a picture without glasses on. I know what it looks like, but it's fuzzy. I attempt to describe it and it comes out wrong, sometimes ridiculously, and that causes more overwhelm. And that makes things even worse. So he knows he has a thought, but he can't crystallize it. The frustration of that alone, and then the
Mhm.
frustration that I can sometimes crystallize it for him, like it's maddening, and it really took me a long time to let that settle deep
Mhm.
in me. Like, come on, you don't understand me. I can't make it any more clear, concise, short, all the rules that we learn, right?
Mhm.
This all. But the capacity thing and the frustration that he feels just in the everyday. And I mean, I gotta tell you, we don't have a ton of interaction necessarily every day. This going
Mhm.
back to defining what a relationship is of like, what is a normal neurodiverse relationship? We know there isn't any, right?
Right.
So I don't have this expectation we must contact 15 times a day or have exchanges
Right. Right.
that. And so, when he has trouble articulating himself, it's me like being a lot more patient than I have been in past years with him trying to get out what he really is trying to say underneath it. Oftentimes it can be something that sounds really mean. And I can give you an example because examples are good. And where did I do it? But
Laura, before you give me the example, I want to go back to something you said and clarify for me and for everybody else. You said that when he's got that thought and it's fuzzy and he's trying to articulate it, you said that it's also frustrating to him when you can articulate it for him. So is it I want to make sure I'm clear on what you're saying there. So he's trying to get this thought out. He's knows what he's trying to say, but it's like he's like I think the way he described it is so I get it, such a great visual there about the fuzzy image. When you do articulate it for him, is it shame that he's experiencing, or what do you mean when you say that's one of the harder parts?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to break that down too because it's a
Okay.
couple of things. Yeah, shame is one of them. Embarrassment, just in general, just like a lack of, he's a failure. He's incompetent. He can't do this skill. The other part is just self-critic, on himself. And the other part of that could be, I would say, not envy or jealousy, but like you can do it better. And I know that, and I don't really like that all the
Mm,
time.
mhm, mhm,
The recognition we have strengths, but that's one of his weaknesses.
mhm.
Hard pill to swallow that when in your head you're stacking up all these weaknesses in your head a lot.
Right.
And I think
Right.
those
Yeah.
weaknesses get just magnetized.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of reminding that, like, hey, you don't like right now in this context, in this story, in this example, that's just one piece. But in general, I love all of you to pieces still, all of
Mhm,
despite
mhm.
this one thing. This is whole picture. I'm always giving him like this is the big picture. Still love you. You made a mistake. I make mistakes. We
Yeah.
make mistakes daily.
Mhm.
Like one thing can come out of my mouth, I can regret saying it and autocorrect, you know. But the awareness is like giant, right? Do a lot of
Yeah.
awareness and self-awareness. Oh my gosh. I mean, part of this whole making a marriage work is yourself. I hate to say it, but the self, like I don't hate to say it. I'm
No, yeah, yeah.
say it now that like, yeah, a lot of the work is not pointing fingers at each other. It's the like, look at yourself and how you're
Mhm,
reacting toward the
mhm.
other person.
Yeah, so okay, and I think so many neurodivergent individuals, whether it's autism, ADHD, sensory processing, all the different things, there is so much shame there because
Mhm.
especially when most of their lives there have been they're just who they are. They're just born the way they're born, and there's no way to they don't know what it is that's making them so different, but they know what that other people are really perceiving them as different. I mean, it's our own perspective is the only one we've got. We can't really understand ourselves in the ways or see ourselves the way other people see us, and we can't perceive what they're perceiving too. But so many autistic and neurodivergent individuals have been criticized and judged and blamed and shamed, and so then that comes into the relationship too. And a lot of times it's been done in the relationship, especially
Oh,
when we didn't
yeah,
know, and you said it
sure.
was just 7 years ago that you
Mhm,
got this framework. So
mhm.
what's that like for you being on the non-autistic side of things, knowing how to put into words what he's trying to say, or I know for me sometimes it's been like the 20 questions kind of thing where I'm trying to help whittle down to try to get to what they're saying, or sometimes maybe I have an idea of what they're trying to say. What's that like for you, knowing that that's also it's like a double-edged sword, because on the one hand you might be able to help steer the conversation toward clarity, but
Mhm.
by doing that you may also evoke this shame response in him.
It's overwhelming at times. For me, it's exhausting. It's like pulling the handkerchiefs out of the magician's hat where you're like, okay, a couple more colors, a couple more, because I feel it's coming, but I have to be extremely patient. And sometimes I don't have that patience because it's going to take minutes or hours or days after that
Mhm.
I'm going to get that. And I don't necessarily want to honestly invest all that time in that moment because my mind is reeling on everything else. Yeah, I don't want to necessarily. And then when I do get that, I'm like, okay, I'm feeling it. It's there. But I would say we're advanced enough in our dialogue that I could literally tell him. So like
Mhm.
we kind of call it out for each other. Like, are you having some, like, can I help you clarify this? Or like, can I help you clarify what you think you're feeling? Because I got to figure out what I'm feeling too. And,
Yeah.
so with a little more of that transparency, if I give you my example, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. So we'll start with an accusation. This is him. You view me like your monkey slave. You boss me around because you think you know better than me. I go, okay. And this is not this is upset. Okay. I would call
Yeah.
it pretty upset. I have to start with what's in my head first. Okay. So, and there's a little bit of distracted ADHD in here. My first thought is so that you view me like your monkey slave. My thought is I'd love a monkey slave.
If only you were.
What would he be wearing? Where is it gonna poop? Can I take care of it? And then I'm like, but Alice Brady would be better because she's a human, and I don't know. Okay, so after that distraction, after that happens, and this is, I would say, this sort of revised me. This is not old 7 years ago plus me. Okay, so
Yeah.
I'd love a monkey slave. Okay, I absolutely agree, and I do give clear directives on tasks and chores, and so I'm agreeing, like, yeah, I'm a boss. Do I know better than him? Affirmative on most
Mhm.
things in my head. And I, half joke and half like, kind of depends on the context. Now he knows a bunch of stuff too, and I'm not dismissing that. So,
Yeah.
all right, this is going to be kind of bunched up. All right. So what I would say to him, and this is what I call playing the perceptions game, where like, we're going to just try on new hats for a second. Try it on, try it on. Well, I suppose even monkey slaves deserve a break. Okay. Any recent examples of my solicitation of taking advantage of you? All right. And I know right there that he usually can't think of anything in the spot. So there's not going to be the example. It's overwhelmed already.
Yeah.
And that's an important point because
Yeah.
it's like, tell me why you're blah. I can't right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's my job to actually, I feel like it's my job to help him figure
Mhm.
out why. Okay.
Mhm.
Before I could just fight back with extra spears and, get them, like, well, I know you did a lot this weekend. I know you helped me set up and clean up. We had a fall party. I know that, you did some yard work. I know that your project at work was big last week. Your mind was full, so I'm going to be life-giving here and I'm going to offer. It's not the comeback is a neutral one. I just want to make that clear too. When you're having conversation, you want to operate at a point of neutrality. If your body is hyped up and you're like stabbing back, it's so not worth it. I've done that for so many years. It's not,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And so I discerned with him. I know you did a lot this weekend. Da da da. And then he can say, yes, there wasn't much time to rest. So I'm like, oh, it's that he's burning out here. He didn't
Mhm.
get his rest.
Mhm.
That's why he's saying this. Okay. And you still require my services, your highness type of thing. Right. We do a lot of, I joke, humor is not,
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Yeah.
and I can come back with, yeah, I've got high standards and you know what, for myself and those who live with me. So I'm not denying this stuff. I'm leaning into my strengths, what I consider a strength. I try to do too much in too little of a time. Did it again. I forget that it takes you longer to reboot.
Mhm.
Does
Mhm.
100% of the time. Another like theorem of like, it's going to take them longer than me to reboot. Just is. And that's just okay. So my bad, sorry. Let's chillax tonight. Let's watch our show, blah, blah, blah. Or do you need your time alone? And that's a big
Mhm.
distinguisher
Mhm.
of couples that I see progress more is
Mhm.
the differentiation between the us and the me. As the partner who is not autistic is longing for that us and the like
Mhm.
attention and me, and the other person's like, I'm just gonna do my hobby, I'm gonna do my interests, I'm gonna do my thing. And for my spouse, it's, scrolling, it's screen addiction stuff. Just
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
where he's going. I don't, fine, but I know that he needs that. And I'm not upset at that anymore. I shouldn't say anymore as much because I realize that the marriage it's not that fairy tale, like we're together running down the street and doing like there are times and places we do stuff together and it's scheduled. And if it's not
Mhm.
scheduled, the spontaneous thing is going to happen like once a year. It's not going to happen that often.
Yeah.
So like I'm redefining like what is okay. It's okay if he chillaxes tonight. Fine. Is it 7 nights a week? No, because
Yeah.
I'm not my boundaries are no, it's not going to be 7 days a week. For those that are listening that it's 7 days a week, you have to find you got to
Mhm.
find that time.
So, okay. So as I'm listening to you and I'm just sitting here nodding, 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 I'm hearing what some of the comments are going to be
Mhm.
and what some of the questions are going to be and what the comments are going to be. But let me just kind of reflect back what I'm hearing you say, and then kind of address those questions and comments. So basically, you made it really clear that once you got this lens, this framework of neurodiversity, it really started helping you understand. You had a whole new filter, a whole new lens to look through, and it gave you a lot of clarity about what's going on. One of the things that I heard you say the most is, instead of engaging in that boxing ring antagonistic dynamic when he tells you you treat him like a monkey slave, instead of going back at him, and defensively, just kind of the counterattack, you really leaned into it and were like, well, yeah, okay, I can be that way sometimes. Let's talk about it, and let's talk about what that is, what that means. And also, instead of engaging as if you're being criticized, you
Right.
leaned into, okay, so there is part of that that's realistic, and here's why, but how are you experiencing it? And even you go into that curiosity place of, trying to figure out what he really is meaning by that. Like, what does that mean? And you're hearing, tired, overwhelmed, all of that stuff. And then you're also redefining what being in this marriage, to be fulfilled in it, what that actually looks like. And, maybe what it looks like to you in the beginning, what maybe people think of as what a good marriage looks like. And as someone in a marriage and someone who's a therapist, you also see that there is no such thing as the fairy tale marriage, whether you're neurodivergent or neurotypical or whatever. So here's what I'm all of that. I'm just like nodding. Yes, yes, yes. But here's what I know is going to come from some of the listeners is, why should it be you? Or how much is he putting into this insight and this effort? Because so many of my neurotypical partners, both men and women, are like, I'm having to do all the work. I'm having to do all the figuring out. I'm having to do everything. What do you have to say about that?
Oh, I got sick of it a long time ago. So like I hear you all, and I feel like I've upgraded okay, here. I'm not as invested in being in his lane and taking the emotional fire from that. I don't take it anymore. It's not mine. The
Mm-hmm.
reaction is not mine
Mm-hmm.
to consume and then pick apart and analyze and and take in and continue on 24/7 with your thoughts. Yeah. Do I get sick of it still? Yeah. But I'm gonna just here's the dissociation part of like I'm me. I'm more separate. I like he does not complete me as a person. I
Mm-hmm.
am whole without him. Ding 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 ding. I'm whole
Mm-hmm.
without him.
Mm-hmm.
He's whole without me. Imagine. I don't know how he'd be living without me, thing, all that. But he's whole. I'm whole.
Mm-hmm.
We come together and we make a choice every day, a
Mm-hmm.
choice, conscious choice every day. And he's not waking up going, I'm going to work on my neurodiverse marriage today. No, I'm the one that's like, hey, it's a great day. So it is a mindset of the expectation of, can I get him to engage with me? Is he playing today? Are we playing? The exhaustion and frustration of like when he's not giving anything or when you feel like he's not giving anything,
Mm-hmm.
some of that is behind closed curtains that he is giving and you can't see it externally. And
Yeah.
that big aha moment was the visible emotional versus the internal bubbling and stewing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Realization that they're doing their own work inside. You just can't see it or touch it or get close to it.
Yeah.
But it still qualifies. It's not quantitative.
Yeah, no, it's qualitative and it still absolutely very much counts. So for you, both personally and professionally, some neurodiverse relationships can, especially once they have that awareness and that framework, can start to move in a direction toward satisfying, toward fulfilling, whereas others are going to continue to move in a direction of decompensating and unraveling and spiraling and will eventually end. What would you say are some of the primary ingredients? I don't know if you've specifically asked your husband this or if maybe you feel like you can represent his perspective, but what are some of the primary ingredients that affect that tipping point of which direction this is going to go?
Belief in yourself, the self-critic, minding her. I mean, I've had a lot of conversations with my self-critic gal. We have a lot of meetings. She's a lot different than she used to be.
Mm,
Here's where I'm talking about the me work again. So even
mhm,
when I work with clients for some time, the evolution, okay, maybe I can break it down this way. When I started 7 years ago, when we just learned the data, you're into that data gathering and like you're reading
Mhm.
every book, article, podcast,
Mhm.
support group, Cassandra, this, all of that.
Mhm.
And it floods and you're so excited. You're like, hey, and you're bringing this to your spouse, like, yay, we figured us out. And he's like, what are you going to do with this? I don't know what this means. Stop putting labels on me every week. Like all of
Mhm.
that,
Mhm.
Yeah. Do I still read books and like get great information from my clients here and there? Yeah. But I'm away from that and into the
Mhm.
self work of believing in myself and talking to my self critic. Whereas where I need validation from him before, because you
Mhm.
want it from your spouse, it
Mhm.
feels natural, it feels good. It's a different kind of validation. And
Mhm.
when I dig deeper into our conversations, I feel like he won't say it, but there is support underneath there. I have to magic hat that out again, but it's there.
Or even just learn what it looks like on
Yeah,
him.
it looks very different on him.
Yeah.
You've had a lot of people say like, my spouse hates me. They
Mhm.
genuinely dislike me. Do they? Or is it they're having a bad moment and they can't express it and then they're going to change their tune because the next day it's like nothing ever happened. They'll come and they'll say, my partner acted like as if nothing happened. And it's like, well, they've already forgotten it. It's gone. And they're on to
Mhm.
the new day, new thing. So anyway, so back to all this believing in myself, checking in with my self-critic and taming her down and sort of like I don't need again, if I don't need him to complete me, I can do my own emotional feelings work by myself. I need
Mhm. Mhm.
support from my peeps and everybody else.
Mhm.
And he, meanwhile, is there and when things are good, they're good. And so I'm going
Mhm.
to interact with him when it is like that. And I guess so for those that are suffering, that are listening to this, that are in that like, oh my God, I can't do or say anything. I'm just constantly, you know, I'm trying to think of the thing that was a tipping point for him to realize that he had to make some changes. And so another one of his points was, I admit that I'm not very aware of myself. I know
Okay.
it sounds simple, right? And that presents more issues up front. And so I'm like, oh, yes, tell me more. Tell me more about you being not aware of yourself.
But that in and of itself is paradoxical.
It is, and it's overwhelming. And
Yeah.
the left brain is going, well, if you and can't be logical, analytical about it, like it must not be, it is rational, And
Yeah.
so that awareness where I can pull in like, hey, are you overthinking right now? Or do you think maybe this could be what's going on?
Mhm.
It's like learning, it is the two different languages and you're learning each other's
Yeah.
language. So that's the language. It's like, hey, kind of a day end check-in is like, hey, what have you overthought today? And I have to say, like, I'm in the same club, it just looks different.
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
tell
Yeah.
what I hyper focused on the whole day, like, I can
Mhm.
tell him, and he could say, "What wall have you talked to today?" Because I can talk to walls, but no one's listening.
Yeah.
Might be a little silly, and so by, again, leaning into who you are as a
Mhm.
person as a whole, fixing or changing you, I just need you to try on the pants. I need you to try on that perspective. It's the
Mhm.
opposites
Mhm.
that I call it the opposite game a lot too,
Yeah. Yeah.
because whatever I'm thinking, he's going to think the opposite to a solution of a problem. And it became a joke. And then it became like a little bit like, oh man, this is pretty kind of real in some way.
Yeah.
And then I have to go against, like, sometimes I have to go against what his opinion is because I'm like, well, it's the opposite,
Mhm.
and that my instinct says go with what I thought, type of.
Yeah. So an
So,
overarching theme that I'm hearing from you is this idea, this realization that not just one, but the realization that we are really, really different, but that's okay. We're not supposed to be the same, and that we are whole on our own. And this, so much of our culture, I think of Jerry Maguire, you complete me, Renee Zellweger and Tom Cruise. There's all these messages out there, not just in religious faith-based communities, but definitely there too,
oh
but
yeah,
just even in secular messaging is that our partner is what completes us. I can't live without you. I can't imagine life without you. And so then when we get in this marriage, we need that person to complete us. And there's this idea that we can't just be whole on our own and be living in partnership with someone else who's a really different person, who's a really, really different from us. And then so that realization was huge. And then you also talked about how you let go, and this kind of gets into codependency territory. You let go of being responsible for his emotions and being the one to try to repair, fix, put together, break, what he's experiencing emotionally. And even though you're not, I don't hear you just being completely, well, sucks for you, buddy, if you don't feel good about this. I mean, it's not about that, but it's also about, whatever he is feeling or experiencing, holding space for him, but not trying to fix it for him.
Exactly. Staying in my lane
Staying in your lane.
as it's
Yes.
been fed, and, from an empathic, like, oh, but I can soothe you and make it better. I will in due time, but I'm going
Mhm,
to let a little more time for him to process, or I'm just going to like know that he's going to be better the next day, or he's going to
mhm,
sleep on it or something. I'm going to give him that space, that
mhm,
actual physical space to just
mhm,
do his thing. Now I have to put in the disclaimer that if it's one of these, gonna make a fire bigger kind of things and I have to intervene and
mhm.
solve it, I have to intervene. But that's more of a like safety thing for the kids or something like that. It's not like directly to him and how he's feeling about it, because he's not going to necessarily know how he feels about it either.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and that's there again, that's part of the process of learning where you put your energy. I've got my 2 or 10 scale that I teach people where it helps you figure out how important is this thing right now? How much impact is it going to make on us, on our life, on our kids? And there's a lot that we can let go. I was just recording this podcast episode with Dan and Stephanie Holmes earlier today, and we talked about that very thing is being able to prioritize, because a lot of times everything feels like an emergency. Everything feels big. Everything feels like we have to resolve it. We have to resolve it
Right now, right
right
this
now.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you want a different cereal than me, and we have to figure this out right now because Wheaties is better than Honey Nut Cheerios, whatever. And that sounds, very elementary, but it's the kind of things that we get into,
In the moment. And like, I don't know if we're again aware of this, but it feels like a drop everything. He has arrived. Kind of
Mm,
like, oh, welcome home. Yay. What can I do and get for you? And I have to stop doing that. Like, okay,
mhm,
they're home from the game or whatever. I'm in the middle of cooking, or I'm in the middle of working, or I'm in the middle of anything else. I'm not going to stop and attend to your every need. And so that enabling kind of like they're used to, when I say they, I mean the kids and
mhm.
spouse are used to me fawning all over them, or I'm doing all these like, wait a minute, this is another realization, and it could be midlife too. What do I need right now? An hour before I'm doing dinner.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
my balance of downtime. Like, I need 15 minutes. Do not disturb me.
Okay, I'm going to pause here with my conversation with Laura. And as promised, I told you it was going to be good. And part 2 is just as good. So be sure and tune in to the next episode to hear the rest of my episode chat with Laura Schreiner. That's a wrap for today's episode. Be sure to subscribe or follow the podcast so you won't miss any of these amazing interviews. And as always, if you're benefiting and enjoying this podcast, please give us a review. It really helps other people know that this podcast is really beneficial and worth listening to. Thanks for watching on YouTube or tuning in to your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to visit me online at jodicarlton.com for more resources. I have assessment quizzes, educational articles, courses, and more. And if you have any questions, just reach out to my team at gethelp@jodicarlton.com. Until next time.